Romantic era. What is romantic era? A time phase, a feeling, an expression, a movement, a flight, an imagination, some attitude. So what was the world like in 18th century? What is romantic era all about?
So it all started from UK, that is England or Britain. These guys had basically started exploring all around the world for their industrial revolution. They needed resources, they wanted to travel. It was the age of enlightenment where new discoveries were happening. There was telescope that was explored before that, like in enlightenment era. So people in Europe were really curious to explore around. American Revolution happened here. So not the entire America was under them, but yeah, like major, like around 10 to 12 sectors of America.
There was this strange connection with nature that was really inspiring the people in America. Getting inspired with it, French people also started getting connected to nature.
King Louis XVI, along with his wife, was dethroned in France outside a prison. That was a big time symbol of all the people that were imprisoned for going against the king, going against the monarchy, or publishing anything openly that was not supporting the monarchy. So that, I mean, it was really significant for the citizens of France to break open that prison and dethrone King Louis XVI. And once that happened, it was a big time moment for the entire world, because suddenly like French people got their independence. They were free. They had to explore their own dimensions. They had to explore a new individualism in them, and there was and suddenly people from all over the world started traveling to explore their origin, what they believe in, their own new beliefs, the new world in 18th century, the Romantic era. But the Romantic era was still not there. People like Wordsworth and Coleridge were still young, out of the college, and in England, and they were really influenced from France and whatever happened there. So Wordsworth one took a trip to France, from England to France, and just to know how did it happen, and he wanted to feel the new French society where everybody is free, everybody is liberal. However, once he reached there, that never happened. So Wordsworth had gone to France in search of a new society with all its liberalism and democratic ideas, got disappointed because there was bloodshed, because there were murders, there was so much of chaos around that he got disappointed with the spirit that was going the other way around. So Wordsworth instead came back to nature, to his own city, and diverted his attention to finding and exploring the basic meaning of life, the basic meaning of liberalism, and he found his solace in nature. In nature he found his peace, his childhood, his innocence, himself. And from nature he shifted to common man. And he saw peace and bliss in everyday life, in a local farmer, in local people, everyday language. And he started exploring the dimensions of humankind, of human nature, along with life itself, along with nature.
Nature. The connection with nature. Is it just from the Romantic era? Or has not man always been connected to nature, affecting men's mood, temperament, the society around, the happenings around, turmoil inside, the bliss inside, and everything represented outside? Pondering upon Romantic era, I was just thinking about how peaceful I am right now amidst this nature, and how difficult and how different the situation was at the time when Wordsworth was there. 18th century. when the world was shaping itself into a new form, the birth of a modern world.
Born in a poor family in London, beside the bank of River Thames, Blake's life was real difficult. Because he was born in England where there were industries happening, where little kids were sold by their own parents to the industries to wipe off chimneys and get charcoal filled lungs, or only to die or get handicapped or be rude and lose their childhood. And William Blake saw it all, the prophecy of a changing world where the world was going in the shackles of anarchy, of industrial revolution, where his beloved beautiful nature was getting ruined by industries, by man's materialism, by chaos, anarchy happening all around, by innocent childhood losing its ground.
Long back in his childhood, Blake once went and sat below a tree and watched that sky and the beautiful sunlight getting filtered through a beautiful tree. And there he had his vision. And there he saw the heaven. He saw beautiful lights in the shape of angels falling and coming and meeting him, merging in him. And there he saw the other world, the world of nature.
That became Blake's vision. Blake's vision of the ultimate solution: childhood, innocence, nature. And for a major part of his life, he lived in a dream world where solution to anything were his dreams, where he saw children getting free of their slavery, of working in charcoal filled factories or working in a polluted atmosphere.
And he saw them getting free in some river, washing themselves off, getting lost in the beauty and free nature, running off fields and flying in the air, or just merging with those angels and being themselves, being the childhood selves and living it all, the beauty of childhood.
But then Blake had to see his own realities, and he saw the dark side of nature, this dark side of human nature, where things don't go as he dreams, where people die, where chaos happens, where anarchy happens, where there is bloodshed, where there is anarchy. And there he wrote his songs of experience.
His initial songs of innocence, full of his dreams, full of hope, full of a new world, a new change, were later changed into songs of experience, where the kids knew their future, where the chaos was ensured, where the anarchy was ensured. And his prophecy said it all, the future of the world, where the world did undergo the change that he decided. Whatever we are in our world, in the modern era, is all thanks to the Romantic era, where all our present day roots of individualism developed. The society was basically categorized in two developing ideas. One was love of imagination, of nature, childhood, and another was science and reason and meaning of life through science and through reason. The two major philosophers were Rousseau and Diderot. Rousseau believed in love in childhood, where child was the hero of Rousseau, where that innocent childhood was the basic of any kind of society, the solution to all the issues of industrial world was just there in the childhood of an innocent child who was free of all shackles of society, was free of rules, free of any kind of rules imposed by the society upon that child's pure mind. On the other side was Diderot, who believed in growing science and reason as the meaning of anything that can be answered in our life. Diderot came up with an encyclopedia which included all the possible notions, all the possible meanings that could have been there available at that point of time. However, God had no existence in Diderot's world. For him, everything was science. For him, everything was reason. Rousseau on the other side was hardcore believer of childhood, of human nature, of meaning of life in nature.
Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Known for his opium addiction and his crazy imagination, Samuel Taylor Coleridge was one prime diva of Romantic era. He believed in his dreams. He believed in his imagination. For him, imagination was the solution for any problem in the world. For him, imagination had the power to create anything in the world. At night, during his dreams, he saw dreams, visions, images, and he believed them all, trying to capture them in his words, in his lyrics, in his poetry. His famous poem Kubla Khan, and even more famous is Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. So it is said that Wordsworth visited some place, and after that he came and shared his experience with Coleridge about him seeing an albatross in the sea, about a sailor or something. And Coleridge got so inspired that he came up with this poem called Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
So the poem involves a sailor who goes till North Pole, that represent the curiosity of that era. So the sailor got lost along with his crew on a ship somewhere in Arctic Sea, and the guy had nothing to find out his own way. And then he saw an albatross flying out of a fog, and they followed that albatross for a couple of days, but then they felt lost, and for no real reason, the sailor somehow killed it. The albatross, he shot it dead.
And that's what haunted that sailor throughout his journey, for the rest of his journey, because he suddenly felt that it was a bad omen. In a way, he hurt nature, and then he has to face the consequences. And gradually, all the rest of the people died, and he had to see them dying, and ultimately he died too. So this represents Coleridge's inner fear of nature, not exactly nature, but doing anything wrong. Just like Mary Shelley gave birth to Frankenstein, which in a way represented her own inner fears, I guess Coleridge also represented her fears in this Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. So how did Mary Shelley came up with this idea of horror, gothic fiction, and the dark side of nature? Shelley was 18 years old when she was sitting with her husband, P.B. Shelley, and her friend Byron at Byron's cottage.
They were all having a friendly chat, communication, when P.B. Shelley came up with a horror story for Mary Shelley. So it wasn't a horror story or like intended that way, but then P.B. Shelley saw some spirits at Byron's place, and he was just conveying what he saw, what he felt. And Mary Shelley in return had to come with something as gothic as P.B. Shelley came up with. So she took it as a challenge, and she had to come up with some story which
could have caused equal sensation and horror and terror inside Byron and Shelley's mind, psyche, hearts. She wanted to enter the psyche and deep conscious of both the poets. Her own life was so haunted that it was so full of deaths, it was so full of suicide, so full of pains, that she had no option but to come up with something of that sort. It was a society after Enlightenment era.
There were experiments of anatomy, giving birth to human life, and all these things were happening. Some scientists at that time had cut open a frog and given some electric shocks to it, and the reaction of that frog's muscle proved that somehow we can probably come up with life. Probably we can give birth to something called life.
Born to an efficient set of parents, where her mother was the first feminist ever, Mary Wollstonecraft, and her father, William Godwin. Mary had to be super brilliant in her genes to come up with such a masterpiece like Frankenstein. Even till this day, we have so many gothic elements taken from Frankenstein in our horror movies, in everything gothic that we connect with.
Forts, the desolate places, the dark element, the dark sky, storm, the most of the things, the appearance of spirits, or the stormy nights, or the lightning in the sky, everything is connected to that Frankenstein.
Like most of the artists of Romantic era, Mary Shelley too wrote her own story.
It's like whatever you create is a symbolic representation of your own life. It's like you create your own life. So not only the real life represented her stories, but her story represented her real life. What she wrote when she was 18 came true. When she grew up, her entire life became a representation of what she wrote in Frankenstein.
Apart from it having a big time connection with her own life, she had also written Frankenstein as a message to her father, where she meant like whatever we create can be a monster, and science may not be the answer for all questions, all problems in our lives, and then we have to be very responsible while creating whatever we create, because our creation is our own responsibility. In the body of that monster, she represented her own self, his isolation, his feelings, his family deprivation, his need of others, his need of someone own, was all Mary's life, where she missed her own cousin who had committed, her own elder cousin who had committed suicide. She missed her own mother who died when she was born, at the time of her birth. When she missed her own father, who was though there with her, still had no time for her, or maybe didn't give her what she required, or didn't understand what she was going through, or didn't support her marriage, her love affair, or her later relationship with P.B. Shelley itself, which got ruined after the death of their children, so many children, or so many children that died and left her alone. That thing itself is represented in Frankenstein, who lost all his relatives and everybody, including his partner, which came true in Mary Shelley's life later on, when even P.B. Shelley got drowned in some accident. P.B. Shelley, a strong believer of free love, and yeah, of course, famous for being the husband of Mary Shelley. So, not just that he was an amazing poet, but also his views were pretty different from the kind of society that was there in 18th century. This guy was a strong believer of free love. He had a wife, and then he fell in love with Mary Shelley, which he considered to be his soulmate, and he valued her more than himself. And apart from Mary Shelley,
He was also intimate with her stepsister Clara. And then he married Mary Shelley, and his wife committed suicide. And later, Clara also got dissuaded and went to Byron just for either after getting sick of this free love emotion, or getting jealous of Mary Shelley, or we don't know the reasons. But whatever his personal life was, later on rather he was frustrated too of his married life when most of his children died, and Mary Shelley was pretty indifferent towards him because he was not at all responsible or the kind of person that he wanted, or because of that strange hollowness that had entered their life. But still, the kind of pieces that he has written are amazing. He was hugely inspired by Keats. He even wrote an elegy on the death of Keats, and when he died pretty young, by the way. So he died at the age of 30, and that was an accident while he was coming back from Byron's place. He got drowned, and his body was found by his wife, Mary Shelley, who later got all his work registered, got it published and all. And this guy was a big time philosopher. He had free views about love, free views about the country, was a lover of nature, lover of human nature, lover of women, and he believed in peace, believed in love, had nothing much to do with unrequired politics and all. And he was a big time radical person. And so he was a student in Mary Shelley's father's college, that was William Godwin. So once he even wrote a letter to William Godwin saying that even if he's a student, he's young and all, but then his views are pretty radical, and he has the strength to stand on those views. So these might not be his words as it is, but that's what his spirit was. He was strong enough to stand for what he believed in, and he was strong enough to accept what he did. Lord Byron, the figure of libertine, the man who believed in sensuality, who believed in passion, who believed in free love, who left no woman, not even his own stepsister, to love, to care.
to get laid with, to be won with. Everybody knows that Byron was the most libertine figure, that women died for him, that he often received letters from his fans, from women asking him for favors, asking him for his company, promising him their souls, and Byron knew it all. Byron used his defame in the society of being a lecherous person, and he chose to be the celeb he wanted to be. People were jealous of him. People were inspired by him. Youth followed him. He was the hero of all the young men and women out there in that 18th century. He had to leave his house, his money, his property, everything because of this defame. But this never reduced his brightness in the world. This rather enhanced his defame, his fame, his celebrity status.
At Byron's house itself, that Mary Shelley, P.B. Shelley, and Byron's meeting happened, because of which Frankenstein got its existence. Shelley remained Byron's friend throughout his life, even if Byron also went out with the same women that stayed with Shelley as well. That was Mary Shelley's sister, Clara. And yet, all these facts never disturbed the friendship between Shelley, P.B. Shelley, and Byron.
Rather, Shelley died while coming back from Byron's house. Byron was also one of those many romantic poets who died at an early age, that is, at the age of 30. The world may have judged him. Literary people may have judged him. But Byron was the hero. Byron is the hero. Byron knew how to use the situations in his life to his best advantage. Byron had vision. Byron had hope. And Byron had the strength to stand for what he believed in. Byron had the strength to face the world for what he stood. And Byron was the hero.
Even if Byron at times behaved so immoral, say he denied to accept his own son when Clara gave birth to it, and he became so inhuman to accept Clara once she got pregnant or she gave birth to a baby, and yet there's something in him that is so appealing. The fact that he sticks by what he believes in, the fact that he has the strength to stand for what he believes in itself makes him a hero. And the fact that just like Shakespeare, just like a right rebel, he has both positive and negative in him. Just because of the fact that he has both yin and yang in him, one can identify so much with him.
John Keats, a surgeon by profession. Once while operating upon a patient's body, he transcended into that patient's body and felt what that patient was feeling and felt the same pain that the patient was feeling. Once done with the operation, he removed his gloves and decided once and for all that he won't ever operate upon a human's body, but he'll rather heal humans through his words, through his poetry. John Keats saw a large number of deaths in his life.
Bidding farewell to his own mother, having his own brother dying in his own arms, watching the world go in anarchy, facing bloodsheds, murders, violence all around. John Keats saw his own death once while he coughed, because he knew the color of the blood. He knew his own death.
Flipping on the coin of life and death, tossing between them, whirling between life and death, the poet wrote Ode to the Nightingale and different other odes. One of them was dedicated to his journey to a Grecian urn, where he saw different runes spread around, which seem eternal. Centuries of men came and went, but the runes were still there, speaking stories of the grandeur that was once there.
After the death of his brother, Once, while observing nature around, he heard a nightingale's voice. For him, the nightingale's voice was eternal, entertaining, amusing, pleasing, healing humans since ever, forever. They will be there forever, but not humans. Ruins of Grecian urn, voice of nightingale, were his escape from his reality, were his solution to eternity. Alas, the poet died at the age much before he should have died.
In 1798, Wordsworth and Coleridge gave birth to lyrical ballads. That was the voice of every man, the voice of common man.
Wordsworth gave its preface to lyrical ballads, and the preface gave birth to Romantic era.
Which denied all shackles of classical rules, poetic dictions, any kind of imposed rules upon poetry or anything that is artistic.
Wordsworth wanted it to be free, to flow, to be the common man, so that everyone has a voice, everyone is an individual, no matter how different he is, no matter how different the person's views are, but the person should have a voice, no matter it's a he or a she, it's the voice of a woman or a voice of a child. Wordsworth gave voice to every man.
And Wordsworth gave wings to every wing that wanted to fly and touch dreams of being individual.
It supported liberty for every man. It supported peace for every child. It supported bliss in nature's lap. It supported joy, heavenly joy.
Wordsworth's explanation of how poetry should be read and how critics are essentially futile for any kind of poetry
Was an important contribution to how poetry was read worldwide even till now.
birth of modern world occurred in all the features that were part and parcel of Romantic era. The two major happenings of that time were French Revolution and Industrial Revolution. Of Industrial Revolution, colonialism gained its root all over the world. Nature deployed. Nature was exploited. Because of French Revolution, liberalism gained its root. French monarchy was dethroned. A secular and democratic republic state became a new thought, a new reality in the world of 18th century. Reason gained its root. Diderot's encyclopedia, even though caused Diderot's imprisonment, but still it rooted the roots of reasoning, roots of science in every man's world, in everyday's life, where people suddenly got aware that
What if God doesn't exist? What if king doesn't has any existence? What if church as the supreme power is not our destiny? Growing experiments and development in science suddenly gained its root in the world of 18th century. Man turned towards powerful feelings happening inside.
with poets like Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, nature became the most essential requirement to be realized by any human individual. The focus was not just on the nature, but also on human nature, upon the powerful feelings, feelings of awe, wonder, nature, beauty, love, anger. Human beings suddenly got aware of not just the right to feel love and beautiful feelings to their maximum capacity.
But also the feeling of dark side of the nature, the gothic and medieval.
Mary Shelley came up with a novel like Frankenstein, which became the root of even today's horror stories. Blake's paintings became an altogether different form of gothic, of dark side of the nature. They believed in extraordinary, wild, they believed in supernatural elements. Wordsworth believed in spontaneous ideas, spontaneous overflow of emotions. Later he came up with those emotions to be recollected in tranquility, to become the roots of any kind of poetry. Wordsworth believed in having a society which is not ruled by any kind of despotic rules of monarchy. Rather, he believed in every man. He believed in the common day language of every man.
Shakespeare became the hero of 18th century philosophers. Poets like Byron, Blake, Shelley believed in the idea of free love.
that love shouldn't be bounded in commitments, in relationships, in institutionalized structures of marriage. Love should rather be free, should be intense, should be passionate, should be wild.
Call it 1789, the beginning of French Revolution, or 1798, when lyrical ballads got published. Romantic era did bring some remarkable changes in the world that didn't end in 1832 when Scott died. The revolutionary social, economic, political, religious, and literary changes caused by different French intellectuals, French Revolution, Industrial Revolution, protests, revolts, rise of middle classes, transformation of England brought humanitarianism, liberalism, emancipation of women, popular education, and science, even till this day, where we feel educated enough to go through those routes that become our formation mind. The medieval revival with a new spice of lyrical ballads made romantics a never-before species who came up with some extraordinary changes in their world to give embers to the world's lamp that they desired. Romantic poets filled emotions with life. They made death alive. Essayists like Charles Lamb, Hazlitt, De Quincey brought in autobiographies describing society at that time. Authors like Walter Scott, Thackeray, Maria Edgeworth, and Jane Austen made novels recognized which never lost their charm. The spirit of speculation and unrest, conflicting old dogmas and new knowledge became an eternal fight, paving way for every man to carry out an individual way for self and decide what to call mine.